You're listening to Big World Network.
One Last Trip to Paris. Episode 1. Bonjour Paris. Written by Jacqueline Harmon Butler. Read by Ton Krakowski. Bonjour Paris, Julie Taylor called out the taxi window. She couldn't help smiling as the cab made its way across Paris and through the midday throng of traffic as familiar landmarks passed by, La Tour Eiffel, Les Arcs de Triomphe, and Sacré-Cœur shining brightly in the distance. She felt a thrill of expectation as she began her new life in Paris. Making a turn through the Place de la Concorde and across the Seine River, the taxi moved into the narrow streets of the Saint-Germain-du-Pré neighborhood. Voila, madame, we have arrived. The driver smiled as he removed Julie's suitcases from his taxi. The huge wooden gates in front of them didn't give much of a hint as to what was behind them. Let me help you with the key. These old locks are sometimes très difficult, very difficult. Ah, non voici, he exclaimed, swinging the doors open, revealing a garden in full spring bloom. Incroyable, incredible. Madame, you will be very happy here, I have no doubt. Julie had searched the internet to find her new Paris home with the same determination that had made her a successful businesswoman. She knew she wanted a place in the 6th arrondissement and something with a garden and a garage. She wasn't surprised when she found the perfect home rather quickly. It was called Les Amours, the Lovers, located on the left bank of the Seine River on Rue Visconti, right in the heart of the Saint-Germain-du-Pré district. While researching the neighborhood, she was delighted to learn that French playwright Jean Racine had lived on the street. Writer Honoré de Balzac set up his print shop, and Eugène Delacroix moved into a nearby studio a few years later, and that's where he painted the portraits of George Sand and Frédéric Chopin. The website photos showed that the house had been beautifully restored. The large rooms were well proportioned and decorated with brocade and gilt furnishings that were in a typically 18th century design. She had been assured by the rental agency that the plumbing had all been replaced within the past 10 years and that the updated electrical system had many outlets and would accommodate her wide assortment of electronic gadgets. But what Julie liked the best was that the property was behind a wall, with an automatic door opener so she could drive into the garage, and provided privacy as well as security for her treasured sapphire blue Jaguar. Beyond the garage was a small garden with a covered walkway leading to the front door of the house. The house itself was painted a soft golden rose color, with lots of French doors opening up to the garden, and topped by a well-aged mansard-style roof. Thanking the taxi driver for his help, Julie gave him a generous tip and then stepped inside her new home. The rooms were even more beautiful than the internet photos. The living room had 2 overstuffed sofas with accenting tables and porcelain-based lamps. The dining room was large enough for a dark wood table, 8 chairs, and a huge sideboard with an ornate cut crystal chandelier hanging over the table. The kitchen was spacious and had the usual appliances, but also had an old-looking La Cornue stove. Julie laughed when she saw it, hoping it came with instructions. Tucked under the counters were a dishwasher and a clothes-washer-dryer combination. The second bedroom was perfect for her office and had a small bathroom just outside in the hall. In the bedroom, she found a beautifully draped Louis XIV-style bed. Julie ran her hand over the heavy, rose-colored damask of the draperies and laughed. This room was made for love, but it seems like my chance for romance is over, she sighed. Am I fated to sleep in this love nest all alone? But she decided not to let such depressing thoughts steal away the fun she was having exploring her new home. Later, as she lay soaking in her huge tub with the golden swan faucet, up to her neck in fragrant bubbles, the phone rang. Fortunately, there was an extension right there in the bathroom that she could reach from the tub. Ah, the French, she giggled. Everything is so convenient. Julie, c'est moi. How's it going over there? Ernesto? I hoped you would call. Yes, I'm fine. Everything is just perfect. Thank you. Good, good. Say, Bill and I were thinking if you weren't too tired, we'd like to take you out to dinner. We know a wonderful restaurant near your new place. What do you say? We could be there at 7:30, okay? Please say okay. Yes, of course. I would love it. Thanks. Come a little early so we can have a glass of wine out in the garden. Ernesto, thank you, and Bill too, for helping me with all the arrangements. The house is just perfect. Julie lay back in her bubble bath and closed her eyes, thinking about the events of the past month. Her world had been turned inside out ever since Dr. Johnson diagnosed her problem. I'm afraid the diagnosis isn't good, Julie. Dr. Andrew Johnson's voice had been serious as he sat down in a chair next to hers. Then, taking her hands in his, he continued. The MRI clearly shows a fairly prominent aneurysm located in the back of your brain. I showed the MRI to several of my colleagues, and we all agree that it is inoperable. Julie, I'm so sorry. But surely you can operate, Julie insisted. This is the 21st century, for God's sake. Modern medicine can totally repair or replace almost every part of the human body. Why not a simple little bubble on the brain? I'm afraid it isn't that simple. The aneurysm is located in a very sensitive area of your brain, and the probability of it rupturing during the surgery is just too great a risk. Even if we could repair the aneurysm, the damage to your brain would most likely leave you paralyzed, and possibly without a memory. What will happen to me? Her voice was just a whisper. Julie, I know you are a strong woman. I know you want reality here. I wish I could give you some good news, something to hope for, but I'm afraid these types of aneurysms just don't go away. They grow and ultimately explode, usually causing instantaneous death. How long do I have to live? Julie's eyes had been wide with shock and horror. I would guess about 6 months, more or less. Julie sat staring blindly out the window. She felt like she was in a dream, a horrible, horrible nightmare. Will I know when the end is near? Usually no, but sometimes headaches begin and become more intense before the end. Dear Julie, I wish there was something I could do, some procedure that would eliminate the aneurysm. I'm so sorry. Julie was dizzy when she drove out of the parking garage of the medical center. The top was down on her car, and the cool San Francisco air helped clear her head. Somehow she wound up driving out to Fort Point. The view from there was spectacular, with the Golden Gate Bridge high overhead and the San Francisco Bay spreading out in front of her. But Julie didn't see any of this beauty. Her blue eyes clouded over and tears began to fall. Why now? Why this? She cried. Julie was all alone in the world. Both of her parents were dead, and she had no brothers or sisters or immediate relatives. She never married and had no children or even romantic partners. She was a beautiful woman, tall, golden blonde with cornflower blue eyes, well-educated, wildly successful, and only 50 years old. She was a top executive with the software company in Redwood City that she founded along with 3 other colleagues she met while studying computer science at Stanford University. They had spent the past 25 years developing gabardine, wrinkle-free software, and growing the business into the industry giant it had become. She usually spent her few and far-between vacations in Paris, a city she loved and had always felt like it was her second home. But the pull of her business always came first. For what? She asked herself. I've had no life. It's all been business. I kept saying I would do all the things I wanted to do later on, that there would be time later, that romance could wait, that I would retire in a few years and begin living the life I always wanted to live. now it's too late. Only 6 months to live. Oh my God. Julie laid her head on the steering wheel of her car and sobbed until she was exhausted. She didn't notice the 2 young surfers looking her way, wondering what was wrong with the pretty woman in the sapphire blue Jaguar, wondering what a woman like that had to be so sad about, wondering if they should approach and ask if there was something they could do to help. They stood nearby for a few minutes, then the lure of the perfect incoming tide pulled them into the water, but they kept watchful eyes on the blue Jag and the woman inside, just in case she might need some help. A few years back, Bill had caught Julie's attention when she repeatedly heard what a fantastic trainer he was with her company's software programs and how much Gabardine's clients liked him. His easygoing Southern accent and attitude made his classes fun as well as informative. Julie liked him from the first moment she met him and did everything she could to promote his career. She was surprised when she finally met his partner, Ernesto, because they were so completely opposite of each other and made a very dramatic couple. Bill, born in Georgia, was tall, muscular, and very blond, with a happy-go-lucky attitude that contrasted Ernesto's small frame, dark coloring, and fiery temperament. Ernesto was born and raised in Cuba and moved to New York as a young man to study fashion design at the New York Fashion Institute. They met through mutual friends when Ernesto went to San Francisco to interview with a prominent designer. And, although Ernesto was a very talented dress designer and Bill a brilliant software trainer, their differences seemed to complement each other, and they were a very happy couple. Julie and the guys had become close friends during their time in San Francisco, often having dinner or going to the movies, and Ernesto often accompanied Julie to tango classes, which was, after Gabardine, her favorite pastime. A few years later, with Julie's encouragement, Bill had taken a position as software trainer for a large international company headquartered in Paris. Ernesto found a job with a small, exclusive courtier. His portfolio was filled with beautifully detailed evening wear, and that's just what the house of Jaja had been looking for. The 3 of them kept in touch via email and sometimes text messages on their cell phones. Ernesto liked to send Julie sketches and photos of the garments he was designing to get her opinion. Bill, on the other hand, often had technical questions that Julie helped him with. The 2 men found an apartment on the far end of the Rue Faubourg Saint-Honoré, near Saint-Eustache on the tiny Rue Vauviliers, right in the heart of the Marais district. They were fascinated by the history of the area. It was once an industrial section of Paris, with the famed Les Halles food market and all-night bistros specializing in onion soup and pig's feet, which catered to truck drivers and assorted delivery people. The French writer Émile Zola called it the belly of Paris. The whole area was transformed when in 1970 the old market was torn down and moved to the outskirts of Paris, and in its place the Forum des Halles shopping center and the Centre Georges Pompidou art museum were built. The district had become the latest hot neighborhood and attracted a community of sophisticated and trendy people. Julie, this place, Les Amours, is really you. You've only been here a couple of hours and it already has you written all over it. How did you manage that? Ernesto was laughing as he said that, but it was really his work that had transformed the little house. He had made new covers for the pillows in deep, rich, jewel-toned velvet and satin. He had placed rose-scented candles in front of the fireplace and along the mantel. He had even organized an office area in the guest bedroom for Julie's computer equipment, then made sure the kitchen was well stocked and that there were plenty of goodies in the cupboards. He even filled the refrigerator with essentials, as well as several bottles of Veuve Clicquot champagne. Ernesto, you are a wizard. Thank you. I really do feel like I've lived here for ages. The house is incredible, isn't it? The champagne tasted delicious as the friends toasted each other. Julie, darlin', may ye only know joy in this storybook house, Bill said as they clinked glasses. "And may you enjoy many, many happy hours here," chimed Ernesto. Ernesto had put together a tray of brie, époisse, and Roquefort cheeses, and opened a little tin of duck liver pâté, along with the chilled bottle of champagne, then carried the tray out to a table in the garden near a trellised wall with huge, fragrant pink roses. Julie marveled at each bite, savoring the extraordinary taste of the cheese. The pâté, smeared on a crunchy baguette, melted in her mouth. "Oh, my!" she exclaimed. "I just realized that I will have access to the most wonderful cheese and pâté in the world while living in Paris, not to mention champagne. So where is this wonderful restaurant you two have been raving about? I'm hungry. I feel like I haven't eaten in days." The friends made their way along the Rue de Seine, through the bustling street market that poured out to the side streets from a Rue Bussy. The fragrant smell of baking bread permeated the air, along with other nose-catching odors from a cheese shop and patisserie. Other merchants offered a wide array of fresh produce, long white asparagus and equally white endive, fat juicy-looking tomatoes, and brilliant purple eggplants. One could buy freshly made foods, prepared salads, and heavenly-looking roasted chickens. Yum! That chicken smells so delicious. Julie was salivating just looking at them turning around and around on an outside rotisserie. "Just think, Julie," Bill said, taking her hand and pulling her along. "You can buy your daily food here every day of the week from now on." "Oh, look! Fresh strawberries! I adore those little sweet strawberries. And look over there! Lilacs! I love lilacs!" "Julie, darling girl, come on, or we will all faint from hunger," Ernesto giggled. He looked over at Bill, and both of them nodded. The restaurant, Vagenande, was located right on the Boulevard Saint-Germain, a lovely old place decorated in the style of Belle Époque, with lots of Tiffany glass, carved wood, and curving wrought iron decorations. As they entered through the heavy red velvet curtains at the entrance, the maitre d' escorted them to a table beautifully set with white linen, shiny silver, and glittering crystal, near the open windows in the front of the room. A small bouquet of pink roses and candles were the perfect accent. They began with a homemade foie gras that truly melted in their mouths. They ordered a bottle of Laurent Perrier champagne and savored the tasty combination of the foie gras and bubbling wine. Then a wire rack was positioned in the middle of the table, holding a platter containing an assortment of delicate oysters nestled in a bed of shaved ice. "I'm in heaven," exclaimed Julie as she let the soft, cool oysters slide down her throat. "This is just plain wonderful." She insisted they order a bottle of Provençal rosé. "I'm sure you will fall in love with it. The color alone is gorgeous, a sort of peachy rose gold. It's known as sunshine in a bottle." "You are right about the color. It is very pretty. Maybe I will make you a new dress in that color. It would be fantastic on you, sweetie." Ernesto took a sip and nodded approvingly. Over Grand Marnier chocolate soufflés, they discussed upcoming events and plans. Both men had decided earlier that keeping Julie busy was important. That way, she wouldn't have time to mope and get depressed over her situation. Yes, they agreed, they would keep her very, very busy.
You're listening to Big World Network.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.